Star Trek premieres now and then. Yep, episode 294 of Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming at you right here once again from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47. Your own very own Trekland Trek with me every week in a small way. Hey, for some clarity, sanity, and the big picture in everything Star Trek. I am so glad to be back with you again for another Tuesday. Of course, everybody's excited. Look, the actual premiere of Picard, this hiatus has felt like an eternity. Maybe it's felt like an eternity because I keep trying to figure out what to talk about. Although we all know that Star Trek is far much bigger. It's far bigger than any one individual series. Come on, it's 2023. We don't hang our hat on any one series. We're just happy to find one series to hang our hat on. Oops, did I say that? No. It's a totally different landscape than it was a few years ago. And right now, the focus of the moment, it's only been helped by this hiatus of 7 weeks since the end of Prodigy. Prodigy ended with a bang and was still shocking people. And if you still haven't watched Prodigy, you need to watch it because it's not just for kids anymore, if it ever was. But nope, we're back to live action. We're back to the finale season, supposedly, of Picard, or is it for all these characters? Who knows? On top of the excitement for a TNG reunion, we've had 7 weeks to stoke the fear. So yeah, people are talking now. We'll see in a little bit that maybe, I don't know how much talking is actually going on, but in some circles, things are spinning out of control. And yes, if you are one of the 47 people left in America who didn't know someone with screeners, apparently, you're going to be excited for that premiere on February 16th. Okay, Paramount Plus, Paramount Global, Amazon Prime around the world, yes. February 16th and then 17th for the globalists. Star Trek Picard Season 3 with this huge TNG cast reunion that we've been hearing about. The bits and drips are drabbling out here. Now Todd Stashwick's character has a name, Captain Roth. So there we go. But what's funny is this week, a week earlier than the regular premiere, is the premiere, the red carpet premiere in Hollywood at the old Grauman's Chinese Theater. It's interesting because, well, I'll talk about that in a minute. But it brings to mind, as much as we'll have red carpety stuff and some previews inside and probably an after party, it brings to mind some of the previews of the past. Now, I'm sure it's all going to be live streamed. All the hoopla they'll get the around the world attention. That's all going to be streaming, and even more so than it used to be. Streaming wasn't invented with the pandemic, especially for special events. It was a big deal. But now that everybody and their kindergarten kid can Zoom, every grandma and their great-grandson or daughter can do that, it's even more a factor. And it really brings to mind, I've got to me thinking about some of the premieres that I was privileged to go to or even read about. Because here's the first thing about premieres, gang. They're all about the moment. They're all in the hoopla of the moment. Really, what more for external world consumption? What is a premiere really for than to come up with some sound bites and now some video? And if you're only watching later on YouTube right now, you should try to join us live. No. The thing about premieres, it's funny. We're all excited. People finagle. People wrangle for a ticket to get in. And then the prize plum, of course, is the after party that not everyone at the premiere is going to. And then out front, of course, is the red carpet. And you've got the working entertainment press, and you've got what passes for the Star Trek. I mean, it's there, but it's not going to be the plum spots. Variety and Hollywood Reporter and Entertainment Weekly or Entertainment Tonight, they're all going to get the prime spots, Deadline, whatever, and some of the tech entertainment places. They'll get the prime places and all that. But eventually, everyone will have their video. You'll see the sound bites. But my point here is you've seen pictures and now the last few years watched virtual or even live streams or even YouTube. What does anybody remember about a premiere later? Once in a while, something actually makes news that is meant to last beyond a week. It's meant to last beyond the actual opening day of the actual thing when everybody can see it, either in a movie theater or streaming. But most of the time, premieres are not that big. They're all about the splash of the moment, which is where, sadly, 3/4 of journalism is all about the splash of the moment. Because, we're all so long attention spanned now. But they are something. And of course, red carpets are all about people getting dandied up, and the women especially. Is that sexist? Where are the skants when you need them? That's all about that too. It's not, of course, with Star Trek, it's not just about the gowns and things. If anything else, Star Trek may be trying to do that to seem a little more mainstream. But no, it's all about the moments. And as time goes by, it's really about the pictures. I mean, the first premiere, I think, on my consciousness, and I was not there, was the big gala premiere for Star Trek the Motion Picture at the barely, what is it open, 3 years at the time? 3 years open National Air and Space Museum. So great branding. And it was a big deal. It was also a big deal unbeknownst to the time. And we have the photos. We have that shot of Gene and Majel and little Rod on Gene's shoulder. We have the picture of Leonard coming in with Nichelle and Grace Lee on each arm. We've got those pictures. We also have the story that got out later on that the infamously delayed, infamously running late, infamously you have to make this promised December 7th deadline date for the theaters, or else Paramount's paying a huge bonus penalty to the theaters. It's going to cost millions of dollars. So all the stories about racing to get the motion picture finished on time, with all the late visual effects slipped into the movies at the last second and not edited, which is why the movie felt so bloated in the beginning, including the fact that going to the charity premiere at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., Robert Wise, the director, was traveling with the last piece of visual effects footage in his lap in a film can that he had to personally deliver to the projectionist that night to slip in at the right moment at the theater where the premiere party was. Well, okay, so the motion picture premiere is a little storied. The other ones kind of just blend in. There were pictures taken. Now, look, the Hollywood hoopla industry has grown a lot since the 80s, obviously. We have more pictures of Hollywood star presentations than we do of what we think of now as the premieres over the day. And of course, premieres are also two different critters here. You've got the movie premieres, which by history definition were more glamorous. And then you've got the TV premieres. Well, who even cared about a TV premiere back in the day outside of critics, cast and crew screening? Oh, look, there we are. We had our work. Yay. Okay, our series premiere. Nobody does a season premiere. It's the series premiere and da-da-da. And over the years, I'm sure there were movie premieres through the 80s. Who knows? I mean, there's got to be in the archives of Getty, in the archives of Variety, in the LA Times, whatever, there's probably premiere pictures. In the old days, in the glamour days, we had the newsreels, and you can find, the arrivals coming out and grabbing some of the microphone. There were some infamous moments in those. Star Trek, I don't know, not so much. If anyone remembers an actual moment from especially an original series film or later ones, remind us, let me know, because I'm really thinking the preponderance of these would have been almost TV premieres, which is where my memory kind of fades. We had just moved to LA actually, no, let me take that back. We had moved to LA in 94. Missed Next Generation's premiere, cast screening. The first one I physically saw was the Voyager. And it was a TV, but still, by this time you've got television critics being invited. The thing about Voyager's premiere, which was a combination of a cast and crew screening, I think, but I know the public one is the one you've seen the pictures of. When Sally Ride, the first American female astronaut in space, was a special guest. All three of the all the executive producers, so Michael Piller, Rick Berman, and Jerry Taylor, all took a turn at the podium. It was in the Paramount's own theater. Here's the thing. Here's the TV thing. The TV premiere of Voyager was a big deal, but it was just on the Paramount lot. Now, it was at the only couple of years old by then, year-old big Paramount theater with the yard in front where you could throw tents of food and things. It was a rainy night because they had to put up the tents just to keep everybody dry. I especially remember that I was excited because it was my first time to be at a Star Trek premiere of any kind since we'd lived in LA. And yeah, I missed the whatever hoopla was made for DS9. But Voyager was not only the new series, it was the new series led by a woman, and it was the first network flagship show of UPN. So it was a lot of extra hoo-ha. And they had the outdoor tents, and I did get pictures. I got pictures of the cast inside on the stairs when they took them. And I also remember it was the night that I was rushing to get to a con, and I took my film to a new cheap overnight delivery place. And as I got the photos and I was racing over to Burbank Airport to get on the plane, I know, pre 9/11, I barely got on the plane. But the film lab had been some cheap place where they had not changed out the chemistry, and my pictures, they all went blue. I have tried over the years to try to color correct, and if there was some kind of stable algorithm that would work. I think it was just all over the map. They're all there. They're just, and of course, I never went back to that place. It was gone within a couple of years, but it was like this really important moment that you can't recreate. I had one or two good pictures, the cast all standing on. So the Voyager cast looking very young and all that. So I was determined never to use that place again. And then a couple of years later, so 7 years later, when Enterprise debuted with a daytime TCA, Television Critics Association, screening and panel before the premiere and a red carpet. I have tons of great pictures of Enterprise. And I don't say that mockingly. I love everybody from Enterprise. I was bound determined not to relive that. But meanwhile, there had been the TNG movies premiered. And again, the moments don't really live beyond the immediate moment of the time. But I do remember not so much the American debut, but it was a big hoopla for generations to be in England. There's a huge attached long story to this, but of course it's, in those days, you had to wait 4 months, 6 months to get overseas openings. London was hooked in with a convention that was a 3-day convention at the Royal Albert Hall, which was a big thing on its own. I just remember being close to the inside of this. My friend Eric Stillwell co-produced this with a guy who no one knew at the time was going to wind up going to prison for being a fraud later. But at the time, it all went off. This one in the next edition. It was the third one that we weren't involved with at all that wound up getting Mr. Jenkins in trouble. But at the beginning, all the cast, including Shatner, were sent over to London for this convention. And at the UK equivalents of Paramount, UIC, who was it? Back in the day, just piggybacked having a big red carpet. They didn't have to pay all the first class tickets to fly everybody over. It was a little bit of annoying. But what it did turn into be was in Leicester Square, a big opening with the cast and Shatner and director David Carson all on stage, which I have kind of a picture of. But there were some press events which were so the lighting was so bad that you had pictures of everybody talking and they're in shadow. It was horrible. No one was thinking. Brit PR people, come on. They've upped their game since, I can tell you that. But it was amazing. And to have cabs, I didn't know what was happening, and to have cabs pull up, and we got out for the screening, the premiere screening, having to walk the red carpet and having people go, oh, who's that? Oh, it's nobody. Our carload getting out and going up, of course, there's no pictures of that moment. So I have no pictures of me getting out of a car to go down a red carpet in London. But I'll never forget all the fans pressed up against the metal grates, the metal railings. That was kind of an awesome moment. It was just the same old movie. And then the after party was amazing. Although it was that kind of the very undemocratic, the special guests are up in a balcony, not even a VIP area. And then the dancing disco down here. I was like, well, it'd be nice to see some fans, but we're all segregated up here. That was kind of memorable to me, and I'm sure the fans that were there. But in the big scheme of Star Trek history, not so much. And of course, the First Contact was awesome because so many people were working on it, and it was my wife Janet's only screen credit back in the day. Now she would have had her name up every week. But back in the day, no, the assistant script coordinators did not get that. So yeah, premieres, and then we bop along. So I never saw a premiere for any of the JJ movies, any of the Kelvinverse movies. I remember the shutdown on Hollywood Boulevard, where to make a big splash for Star Trek 09, which was Paramount gunning up to, here's the new era, everybody. Here, excuse me, we've already reinvented Star Trek, and it's already a completely new thing, and pumping all this money into, well, they couldn't pump any money into licensing because Bad Robot was going to release everything 6 months later because they were master marketing geniuses. Long saga. We'll talk about that someday. I'm so glad it's all come to light, though, and I didn't have to sit on this. But the spectacle, the premiere was amazing, that they had Hollywood with a Delta on the street and the lines around. It was like an Oscars or an Emmys red carpet with the fans in a bullpen, and that's something that's been picked up since. Huge, the photos, unending, big spectacle for 09's premiere. Accompanied with around the world tours to open up the global markets, which was amazing. I don't know how many stops, 15, 20 stops, all through the Asian markets, and yeah, across Europe eventually. But a big push in Asia for Star Trek for that. But those were all, splintered up premieres. It's almost like the one of those Kelvin movies, almost like the LA Hollywood premiere was an afterthought. They were opening in Australia and Japan, the Philippines and China, all over before they ever had the openings in the States. My memory serves. One of those. Of course, the world premiere for Beyond was at Comic-Con San Diego, which was turned into a huge public event. It was outdoors on the bay with a live orchestra with Conan O'Brien doing it was it's a shame that Beyond didn't seem to suck up box office numbers over that. All intents and purposes, Beyond might have been the best one of the Kelvins and had the lowest box office, so go figure. But that brings us back around to the TV shows. And of course, Discovery was the first Star Trek premiere in Hollywood of a series since 2001. So 16 years later, it was a very big deal. And at the Cinerama Dome, which is very cool. And yeah, we were there. This idea that you'll see this week of having a ton of invited fans, especially LA fans, maybe some if they wanted to fly themselves in and had access, but having a fan bullpen down there, to cheer and yell and be local color, and everybody coming some kind of costume cosplay. That's been a recent thing, and they were just getting off the ground because they were building up Discovery and the streaming service, and this another change, another paradigm shift. And to me personally, what it was they did reach in and bring back a lot of legacy folks, but a lot of legacy folks that you didn't. Certain powers that be made sure that a lot of us that worked in the Berman years on the shows just adjacent were there. And it was a wonderful little reunion. I have photos in fact, it was the last time I had a photo with April, who was a producer, had started off as a PA on the show and died very, very sick. Had a cancer diagnosis midway through, worked on Picard and Strange New Worlds even, and died and got the full title card mention. But I'm so proud, precious to have those photos and a moment to say hi over the years. But a lot more people beyond that. It was just a wonderful reunion. It was part of the feel good, even though you had plenty of issues, many of us, with Discovery, or okay, that's a growing pain, that's going to get fixed. Okay, but just to have Star Trek back and to have something in LA, and having had that all shot in Toronto and been robbed of Star Trek in LA, where God intended it to be made, having the premiere back in LA because it was close to everybody, all the writers and actors were really in LA still. That felt good. That felt really, really good to have that, and then an old school after party after that, and to just get off the ground, meeting a lot of folks that I hadn't had a chance to meet. And then the Picard premiere, same place, Cinerama Dome, same thing. Just a great, even with even more of a feel. And to see, if Bob Justman had still been alive, he would have been there. Rick Berman was there. Shout out to, because of the Next Generation roots here, It was a different vibe. And Picard was made in LA's greater areas. There was a lot of flavor there. Of course, within 3 weeks, we had COVID. And so the COVID era of these things, everything went digital. And the era of the digital premieres, which on one hand became a lot more small-d democratic, it was online. It was almost nothing to get on a list, wrangle a code, share them widely. You have to worry about, people only saw what the studio wanted you to see. There was no chance of spoilers or leakers. And there was no crowd management, no overhead, no venue to rent, no security, and no PR people tearing their hair out, or their heads, over the whole thing. The logistics, the overhead was nothing to do virtual once everybody got to streaming. And then you had the coming out of the gate ones like the Prodigy, the Lower Decks premiere, the virtual ones where maybe a few people of the crews who were already in a pod got together on camera. They weren't painful, but they were just made you realize how much we were missing out on. You saw what Star Trek Day was like as a virtual project. A lot of you did. It was the same way a lot of these. I just never forget I didn't get to go, but the outdoor lawn chairs, everybody being socially distant with a small audience of 12, 15, 20 over in North Hollywood for an outdoor screener for Lower Decks. Was that season 2? Anyway, that's why it's, and then our Prodigy box back there for Prodigy. And I've got a Picard season 2 premiere box, trying to bring the live goodie bag flavor excitement to people virtually. And through the pandemic, it was a whole new look for a premiere. So, and even Strange New Worlds kind of was still in that mode. So this week for Picard season 3, we've gone through the tunnel and come out the other side. It's still going to be a cautionary tale, but you'll be seeing photos and video of people actually on a red carpet, actually being asked questions. For whatever good anybody will care in 2 weeks' time, that's beyond the point once again. Now, there is going to be a charity tied-in event next week, early in the week, in New York. So yes, East Coast, you're getting a little bit of that. And that's been part of this with the streaming series, especially the live actions. There's been an attempt to try to remember that we've got 2 coasts here. And the CBS basedness of everything in New York and shot in Toronto, that lends some weight to having some New York premieres. But you can't. Picard was shot here, so there's that. But even for Strange New and for Discovery, as said the first year, the thing about it's not even so much about the sound bites as it's been some of the pictures. I will say this: when you've had something like the Discovery season 1 premiere, which was not just season 1 of Discovery, it was the first small screen Star Trek in 12 years, in 14 years to premiere, 01, 05, 16 years to have a premiere and get everybody excited and juiced that, see, Star Trek is still alive. No matter how you critique it, we're here, we're making a splash. And you were still able in 2017 to have photos of history, such as Nichelle, right there with Michael Burnham. You come away sometimes with those iconic images, like the dedication of the building, which was not a movie or TV premiere, but the dedication of the Roddenberry building with Gene posing with everybody, all the actors, all the notables. You come away with those snapshots for the ages. And even sometimes you forget 20 years later, 30 years later, 50 years later, you're looking at this photo and maybe you forget exactly what the occasion was. But yeah, Sonequa and Nichelle, they're together. Having one generation with another generation of cast or creators or you name it, what have you. This is going to be poignant. We'll see how many visuals we get with, Dave Blass's all-star art team on hand once again, and even more in the mix of things than they were for season 2 with the Titan versus the Stargazer and just all the graphics all down the line. But then again, art people are notoriously behind the scenes, below the line folks are notoriously left out of the glam of premieres. It's cast, no matter how tiny, the role was, and that's fine. And of course, all the top dogs, all the executive producers and writers and all that. But visual effects, editors, costumers, set design, art, all those folks, they tend to, sadly, which I don't agree with. And of all the projects and titles and franchises, Star Trek, those folks are stars too. Sometimes the promotional machinery doesn't get that memo. Hopefully, on the long run, long after the promotional people have retired, those creatives are being celebrated by fans, and they're getting payback, provided they're invited to conventions, and they get to make a little something out of what they've given, the enjoyment they've given to fandom, and many times to TV and movie history. They get a little payback on that end. That's one of the unfair things about premieres, having to beg for a ticket to get in when what they do is already being celebrated, much less in the years to come. So yeah, that's what comes to mind this week when I see everybody being so excited for the Picard. We're still getting excited about premieres in general after the pandemic, but laughing to myself, smiling to myself, how almost no one will care about this in maybe 2 weeks' time. But for right now, now's the time, now's the moment. And of course, that's the most important thing in the world this week. And getting off to a good start, right? Getting off to a good start with Picard season, which I don't know how that could not happen. You've already seen a lot of the praise. And I mean, I hesitate not to raise the bar too high for anybody. But it's true. All right. And yes, New Yorkers, East Coasters are going to have, there's a charity involved screening next week that's actually got its own amount of hoopla that we'll get back to in a second. So what do you think? Where's everybody's heads? For a lot of people, and I know this, a lot of people aren't privy to any of this. You'll get the spillover. You'll get the quotes and the video and the expectation. That's doing what it's supposed to do. It's getting everybody stoked for February 16th here in the States on Paramount Plus, and on the 17th in Amazon Prime in most of the rest of the world. Your mileage may vary, and I bet if we have some of our global TTLers and Portales and everybody else around the world, they'll sound off too. So what do you think? Where are you? A lot of folks are having local screenings. There's the one, yes, I know Dr. Day's with us today. There's the one in Phoenix. There's one in New York. Now, not premieres, not advanced screenings, but screening parties. There's LAOA team has got one going here in LA. I bet there's some more going on. And maybe you're just having a premiere party in your house on Thursday night or Friday night, depending on how far we're reaching today. So let us know. Let us know where you are, how excited you are, what's the latest gossip rumor. Maybe I can help with that. Maybe I won't. So we'll get to that in just a second. Now, if you're leaving us right now, if you're later on YouTube, don't worry. Go ahead. Leave some comments below too. Leave comments about what you're doing, if any, what you're attending, how you're celebrating, no matter where you are in the world, how you're celebrating the return of Picard. And of all the Trek series, I kid about Discovery, Picard may be the one that feels the most different from season to season. Once the history books are done, we'll see. But right now, everybody's excited about this, and to see all their favorites, so much excitement going on. And we'll look at that. We'll look at that next week too. just so some of the activity around the world is marked, and some of the sidebar reactions in preparation is going to be preparations of all kinds. I think is going to be our theme next week. So yes. Hang on, leave your comments in the chat. We'll get to it. But first, I want to, of course, thank all of our TTLers and our live wires on Patreon. Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, Anne-Marie Siegel, Justin Porteous, Galinda Bruton, Chris Jiggins, welcome to the Patreon, Chris, Andrew Jazimski, Pranakasha Productions, and Gay Clevin Lundstrom. And our live wires, Albert Gunn Johnson, Robert McLean, Alan Hoensi, J.R. Poole, Byron Bailey, Dave Gregory, and Casey Shafsky. thanks so much, everybody, for helping out. You saw our guests last week. We're going to be pulling more new things this year. If you'd like to help out, it's very simple. I keep Patreon very simple. Patreon.com/Trekland Live. $5 or $10. You can go more than that if you want to. But for the shout outs, and we've about got the portal ready for guest interviews from over the years. The early ones from Portal 47, which nobody but the Portales really has seen. So thanks, guys, for all that. Guys, gals, and peeps. We say, try us out at Patreon. They do that at the end of the year. It's very easy. The clock is ticking, though, on if you're in LA for the cruise, or if you're just in SoCal in general, come by, join us for a day tour of classic Star Trek location sites. I offer this as a concierge, Trekland Treks, but occasionally we do a specified, preset, slightly cheaper group tour. That's what the LA Away Days are. That's what this is, a special cruise edition for all the folks around the world who are in LA. Unusually, because the cruise usually leaves from Florida the first 5 editions, but cruise number 6 is leaving from LA, and thus this. So get in touch with me. LarryNemecek.com is where you can still find the info on that. Also get in my list because you want to be in for all the stuff, the polls and the newsletters and the news. The thing I announced last week, I want to make sure everybody knows, Virtual TrekCon 4 is coming. It's actually Thursday through Monday, the 16th to the 20th, in just a couple of weeks, too. It'll be, for those in the States, it'll be a very long edition of President's Day weekend. But here's the thing. Yeah, we're having a reunion. Our first post end of the podcast special video live with chat, just like the old days. We have a 90-minute life support live segment. Dr. Ali and Dr. Trek back together again, and one of us is only still a real doctor. That'll be the day after the Picard premiere, so we can incorporate Picard. We're working on our theme, but you can bet what's going to be fresh and top of mind for the 2 doctors. I'm so excited. Finally, we've been able to, as we promised, we're not live yet, but virtual is the way most people experience life support live. So very excited for this. It's been since last May that we ended the podcast after 2 years of pandemic. So very excited for that at 11:30 on Friday the 17th. Here's the other thing that I don't even have a graphic for yet. I've got Virtual TrekCon, a noon Pacific panel with my colleagues, Lolita Faggio, and yes, Miss Janet herself are all going to have a virtual panel at noon on Thursday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, 8 p.m. UK time, 9 p.m. Then our life support panel, Ali and I, are on at 11:30 a.m., all right, 2:30 Eastern. And then Sunday night, the Lappy Awards, the Live Long and Prosper Awards, are going great guns all day Sunday. And then I'm back in the wrap-up show late Sunday night on that, 9 or 9:30, something like that. And then, not announced anywhere yet, the great Terrace Cassidy and I are going to do a virtual panel, about location filming sites and some tips and breadcrumbs that you can do if you're not able to join, or until you can join the big show that he and I do, which has now been moved. I can say we've moved back to 2023 just because a lot of things did not quite come together, but it's the same plan. 10 days, LA and San Francisco Star Trek film sites. More's coming on that, but just so you wonder what happened. But regardless of the year, Terrace and I talk about tour memories, location site info, some tips for you. That's going to be at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern on Monday. Why am I not doing something on Saturday? Because Saturday I'm live down at Gallifrey. Gallifrey won the Doctor Who annual convention, which is still in half-scale mode coming out of the pandemic. And if you're there live, good luck. Congratulations on getting in, because it's really limited admission, even though it's 2,500 people. And 3 o'clock, I'm on the Token Trek panel. It's still scaled down. So next week is going to be crazy. Next week's going to be crazy. And in the middle of all that, I think we are going to be seeing Cadet Alice and get some new Prodigy Cadet Alice and Dr. Trek shows recorded. So yeah, So Picard premiere, okay, I'll see you that and raise you 6 things happening next week. It's crazy. I think it's like slam. Okay, we're out of the pandemic, so everybody behave. Everybody behave. And of course, on top of all those goodies, a new Trek Files is up today. Over there at our site, the Trek Files on Facebook, is where you can get the documents, as well as, and it's a doozy document this week, as well as the podcast. The audio you can get anywhere. Podcast.roddenberry.com has all the Roddenberry places. We are blessed to have the great Dave Blass back with this production designer on Picard season 2 and 3. And we're talking about the times when artists help writers make their creative decisions, with a memo from the early days, Roots, Tia G, debating who's going to sit where on the bridge and what the bridge positions are going to be. You don't want to miss that one either. So check it out. Check it out at Facebook or wherever fine podcasts are caught. That's going to do it for me. If you're leaving us on YouTube, try to join us back someday live if you can. If you're on vacation on the holidays, love to see you here on Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday evening, depending on your continent. Otherwise, you can always find me on Facebook at Larry Nemecek's Trekland. Same thing for our Instagram and YouTube. Like and subscribe, please. Our Twitter, I'm still there. And Mastodon is at Larry Nemecek. And Portal47.net is, your mini-con all year long. No more post-con blues, no more post-cruise blues. We have guests and fan stuff all year long, and you can pick my brain almost anytime. Even more so than here on Tuesdays Live. But it's great to see everybody around the country. So stay healthy. Do all the things. I hope we're navigating this correctly. Stay woke. Check your sources. It's going to get thick. We're not out of these woods yet. It's so easy to divide people by the fake news. It's so easy to divide people by not telling you all the truth about history. Come on, you're a Trek fan. Trek well.